Is up and so I'm saying good afternoon. I'm sorry. Good morning and welcome everybody to another CATHIP Health Hour session today. We are bringing you another interesting discourse today, and every single person is welcome wherever you're joining us from, whether it be on Zoom or on Facebook or on YouTube, wherever you're joining us from this morning, a very warm welcome to you. And my name is Dr. Diana Asante, and I'll be your host for today. We have a very exciting topic to discuss. As you know, week in, week out, we have our Black doctors, Black GPs, Black consultants, Black clinicians coming to teach us and talk to us and educate us about health-related topics that would empower us and improve our health outcomes overall. And these people volunteer their time and freely to come and support us. And also by your gracious presence week in, week out, these programs are a success. So we want to say thank you. Today we have a topic relating to stress and anxiety. It's a topic that we've probably discussed before, but as you probably agree with me, it's a topic which is very relevant to all of us and affects each of us in one way or another, or we might know somebody who is affected one way or another. And we have none other but someone who is part of our own team, part of the CAHN team, and also the mental health lead for CAHN this morning to deliver this talk for us. He's also a general practitioner with a special interest in mental health, and he's got a wealth of experience under his belt as a doctor and as a specialist. Right, so as the program normally goes, we'll have a session where our resource person takes us through the program. As we go along, do feel free to put your questions in the chat box and send them across. And we do have digital assistants who will be engaging you across on the call. And during the Q&A session, the question and answer session, we would have a very interesting discussion, doing our very best to answer all the questions that have been posed to us or into the chat box. So without wasting further time, it is my pleasure to introduce to us Dr. Joseph Omofuma, who is a regular and familiar face on this program, a very experienced clinician, the mental health lead for CAHN, and a general practitioner with specialist interests in mental health to take us through the session of stress and anxiety. Over to you, Dr. Joe, and so nice to see you today.
Thank you, Diana. Nice to see you as well, and good morning to everybody. Thank you for joining this morning. Like Diana said, I am part and parcel of CAHN. I hope we can all hear me okay.
Yes, we can.
Good. This morning, we're going to be discussing a topic that we've kind of touched on before, like Diana alluded to, and it's something that unfortunately that people keep requesting for. So we've had to do a kind of rerun of this and talk about it. So I'm going to be talking about stress and anxiety and what it does to you. So like Diana alluded to as well, I'm a GP, I'm a local GP here in Manchester, and I have special interest in mental health. I want to, by way of disclaimer, say that I am not being paid for these sessions because I have friends and colleagues. This is something that we do as part of our contribution to our communities and giving back to the community and making sure that the community is educated. Also, we encourage people to please engage and ask questions, because part of what I'm going to be talking about today is the lack of engagement that sometimes we have in the Black and ethnic minority community. By way of introduction, mental health generally is a bit of a stigma still, unfortunately, in our community, where people are still afraid of talking about things. People are wary about talking about stuff. And unfortunately, what that means is by the time people then begin to come and talk about it, things have progressed really badly and things have gone very far to the point where a lot more intervention is required. So I want to encourage you to I'm going to speak for about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, and then I'll encourage us to ask questions. I have given a talk like this before. I've added a few more things to this particular talk because of certain recent events. News coming in this morning from the BBC, new data shows that in the year leading up to 2017, about 300 nurses in the NHS committed suicide. Now, this is the reason why I like talking about mental health, because mental health is a big deal. It's one of those things that, because, you know, when someone is bleeding, you see that they're bleeding. If someone's got diabetes or asthma, you see they've got asthma. With mental health, it's a little bit more subtle. You need to look a little bit deeper. 300 nurses in 7 years leading up to 2017 committed suicide. From in the first year of the pandemic, survey that was done showed that over 220 nurses attempted to harm themselves in one way or the other. Now, I'm just giving you the raw data to explain to you what motivates people like me to do the kind of things that I do. And it's because there are real people out there who are facing real challenges. All right. So today we're going to be talking about mental health and what it does, stress and anxiety and what it does to you. Okay, I'm going to be sharing my slides to make life easier. So that's me, and that's the topic that, and I hope we can all see. Give me a thumbs up if you can. Thank you. Fantastic. So I'm going to go back a little bit. Okay. Bear with me, technology is fighting with us. Okay. So what is stress? How do we define this and what do we make it to be? All right. The first thing is to understand what these terminologies are, because if we don't know what they are, then we'll struggle. So stress can be defined very loosely as a physical, mental, or emotional factor that causes bodily or mental tension. It could be anything physical, mental, or emotional that causes tension in our bodies or tension in our minds. It can be external, such as pressure, trauma from outside, or it can be internal, which is by far perhaps the most common, where we talk ourselves into believing or doing certain things. It can be acute. It can be something that happened, you know, quite recently, like a relationship breakdown, like when it happened with the pandemic, or a failed driving test, failed exam, bereavement, or it can be chronic, physical abuse, emotional abuse, bullying, financial struggles, racial discrimination, things like that. Anxiety, however, is defined as a feeling of unease, such as, you know, worry, fear, or foreboding. It's a feeling that something bad is going to happen to me, a feeling that something evil is going to come my way. It's basically a disorder of fear. It's that feeling, that constant feeling of unease, of worry, of foreboding that something bad is going to happen to me. And when you combine these two things together, anxiety and stress, it's like having two evil twin brothers living with you, unfortunately, because they feed off each other and they make each other worse. Anxiety makes stress worse. Stress makes anxiety worse. Anxiety can lead to depression. It can lead, like I already said, it can lead to stress. It can lead to many other anxiety disorders that we may or may not be familiar with. Panic disorders, post-traumatic disorders, popularly called PTSD, phobias. It can lead to generalized anxiety disorders. It can even lead to more severe mental health disease like schizophrenia. So there's lots of things that they sort of tie into one another. One feeds into the other one feeds into the other one. Both of them are not great to have if one were to, if you had the option to choose. Let me just say this at the very outset, that having anxiety is not the same thing as having an anxiety disorder. I've said this before, that a lot of mental health symptoms that we have are merely extensions of the normal day-to-day responses that we should have. Having a bit of anxiety is actually good for us, because when you have anxiety about something, it helps you to think more clearly. It helps you to problem solve. It helps you to think about what other options there are. It helps you to look at things from many different perspectives. But when that anxiety or that feeling takes over your life, when it cripples you, when it becomes prolonged, in medical terms, 4 to 6 weeks is the time. If you have prolonged, feelings of anxiety lasting more than 6 weeks, then we may well begin to think that, hey, this is an anxiety disorder. So having a bit of anxiety is not the same. I often tell people jokingly that when Man United are playing, I often have anxiety. But that doesn't mean I have an anxiety disorder. It's just that Man United are a little bit rubbish. All right, a different topic for a different day. Here's where we're going with this. And I've put this slide deliberately with these colors, which some of you are probably struggling to read, because I want you to understand how stress works. Stress is often insidious. It's hidden. It's in the background. It's not something that is, widely open and visible for everybody to see. And it's slow growing. It's insidious. It's slow growing in the background. It gradually comes on you, gradually. And many people are often in denial about it. Most people tell me, oh, I don't feel stressed. And I often smile because many times they are showing all the signs of stress, but they tell me they are not feeling stressed. Now, there are two extremes, right? These days, forgive me, but Generation Z and especially Generation Z and the millennials, there are those who blame everything on stress. They didn't put chocolate on your ice cream, I'm stressed. I forgot my umbrella at home. Well, that can be stressful, I suppose. But trivial things, they blame everything and say they're stressed. Those are not real stresses from the medical standpoint. And then there's the other side of it where people who everybody around them can clearly see that they're struggling, but they will not own up to stress until the very last minute. I've said this and I've underlined this because it's really, really important. The key to dealing with stress and anxiety is early recognition and prevention. Please put that somewhere, take it to the bank, tie it up somewhere. The key to dealing with stress and anxiety is early recognition and prevention. In case you haven't caught it, what I'm trying to allude to is that these things are better prevented rather than dealt with. Of course, there are therapies and things that you can use, but like with most things with medicine, it's probably better to try and prevent them, especially the issue about stress. And you will understand why in a minute. Just a few things more about stress, because people often talk about stress in very negative undertones. And I like to explain to people that, look, stress is not all bad. Stress is not always a bad thing, as it were. Because we sometimes assume that when we talk about stress, it's bad. The body is wired to react in a certain way when faced with difficult situations. That is actually a protective mechanism. That's one of the ways in which the body protects itself. It's wired that way. So for example, you came across a poisonous snake, or you saw a wild beast like a lion. Now, if your hormones or if your chemicals in your body that is for flight and fright do not kick in, and you stand there looking at the poisonous beast, guess what? It's either you become dinner, lunch, or breakfast for that animal, or you're going to get bit. So stress is actually a protective mechanism for the body. And in that process, a lot of chemicals are released, which increase our heart rate, increase our ability to function. It releases hormones, which can make us run, jump, do things. Now, just imagine staying in that heightened state of response. That is what clinical stress is. Being always on the edge, feeling on the edge, like something's always going to happen. Like when you see a lion roar, like, I don't know about you, but I went to the zoo and this lion, it looked like it was looking at me for a few minutes there. And I was wondering, why is this lion looking at me? Okay, it was in an enclosure, it was far away, but it was kind of looking at me, and I'm thinking, does this thing, thinking maybe this might be food. Now, I'm saying this humorously, but if you can imagine the stress that I put myself under, being in that state on a regular basis, consistently, it can be very damaging. It's damaging to our internal organs. It's damaging to us physically. It's damaging to us mentally. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about what the effects of prolonged stress are as we go along, okay? What causes it? What causes prolonged stress? I'll try and share my slides so that everybody can participate in that. Because I think it's really important I like to break things down, okay? I like to make it really, really simple. But this list, like I always say, is not conclusive, it's not all engrossing, but these are some of the things. And I'll start with the number 2 one, which I think is perhaps very important these days. And that is difficult relationships. Challenging relationships with family members, partners, co-workers, other people. Here is the thing. we spend 7 to 8 hours of our lives asleep. The rest of the 16 hours, you're interacting with people. If you and I find ourselves in challenging relationships or difficult situations, guess what? We are simply exposing ourselves to stress. And unfortunately, I've been a clinician now for 22 years, coming up to 23. I've seen situations where people put themselves in difficult situations over a long, long period of time. And unfortunately, this then begins to affect them mentally. It affects them physically. I'm not trying to apportion blame. I'm just saying that it's a sad state of affairs. It's like this. If you grew up in a third world country, for example, and you're used to hardship, you would believe that everything about life is about hardship. To use a colloquial term, if you stay in a pile of shit for a long time, after a while, you stop smelling. Okay, not nice to say on a Saturday morning, but you get the meaning that I'm trying to convey. When people have been in difficult situations for a long time, after a while, you begin to think that that difficult situation is a normal situation. However, that difficult situation is affecting you. I've had to counsel lots and lots of people, young people, old people, who have had difficult situations, either with their parents, with their children. Difficult relationships cause a lot of things on people. People begin to develop physical illnesses and mental illnesses. Something that's related to that is job-related stress, high-pressure jobs, difficult work environment, or working extremely long hours, or difficult employers. All these can be sources of prolonged stress. Also chronic health problems, of course, diabetes, asthma, multiple sclerosis, chronic fatigue syndrome, things like that, polymyalgia. Now, traumatic stresses as well. So things like racism. Racism has been shown to be a massive, and I gave a talk somewhere else to a different organization about how racism has been shown medically, scientifically linked to causing stress and causing anxiety. But things like, emotional, physical trauma, emotional abuse, combat exposure, people who have been exposed to all kinds of violence, etc. Now, here are some of the impacts of prolonged stress or stress on us. This list is not exhaustive, but you will see on this list that this stress can cause both physical as well as emotional or psychological issues. It can lead to simple things like high blood pressure. It can cause diabetes. It can cause heart disease. It can even cause skin irritation. There are certain types of eczema, for example, certain types of dermatitis that flare up in periods of stress. And those who suffer it, they know there are certain types of bowel problems that are exacerbated during periods of stress. Autoimmune conditions such as systemic lupus, thyroid problems, joint pains, arthritis, etc. These are all exacerbated by stress. When it comes to the mental health aspect of it, anxiety disorders, depression, schizophrenia, things like that, all are impacts of prolonged stress. And the list goes on and on. Now, when we see something, now what are the signs and symptoms of stress? I didn't put this on my slide. As I was speaking, I just realized that it may be well to mention, but we've already alluded to it, where people are excessively on edge. People may be, excessively angry or irritable, short-fused. People may even withdraw. This is actually very common, especially in children and in men. They just withdraw and they become more quiet. Whereas women are generally more vocal with their feelings, and they talk a lot. Men tend to go quiet and they go into their shell. When they are stressed, they just disappear because they believe that that's their own defense mechanism. So when you begin to see someone exhibiting behavior that are not very normal for them, I think it's really important to begin to have a high index of suspicion, because part of the reason why we do this talk is not just for ourselves, but for our loved ones, for people in our community. Some of you are community leaders. You can see signs and symptoms of people. When somebody is struggling to be alone in a room with people. I remember a lady came to our church and she wouldn't let anybody hug her. And I knew straight away, as soon as the first time, second time, I thought this lady has had some issues. In further discussion with her privately, I found out that she had been sexually abused. She had been raped. And so there are certain telltale signs, certain things that you can pick up on with people who have undergone, different types of stress. But not everything is stress. Not everything is stress. There are different things that can look like stress, behave like stress, may not necessarily be stress related. So thyroid disease, for example, can give you rough skin. It can cause weight gain and other symptoms. It can cause a mood. This can cause you to have a low mood. Menopause is a big one. You know, one woman said to me that if you don't give me medication for this menopause, I'm either going to kill my husband or I'm going to jump out of the window. And I said to her, none of these are acceptable options. So menopause can give you those symptoms that make it look like you're stressed, but it actually, once you treat the menopausal symptom, that's the difference. Once you treat any of this, those symptoms disappear. You know, thyroid problems, low iron, vitamin D, drug side effects, alcohol excess, etc. What are some of the things that we can do? Because, you know, it's not all doom and gloom, because we come in here, we share a lot of things, and for the purpose of this discussion, I try to keep things very simple and keep it short so that hopefully we can ask questions and answer a few things and just sort of try and tailor it as well to things that happen in the Afro-Caribbean community more often. But there are a lot of things that we can do, because part of, I think, what we try to do is to try and understand what the disease or what the illness is, try and understand how to recognize it, and then begin to look at how do we begin to deal with it. What are the steps that we can take? What are the things that we can do to make things better? All right. So what do we know so far? Some of the things that we can, this is purely my advice. This is just my advice mixed with a little bit of evidence-based, about a lot of experience has gone into this in terms of what I experience on a day-to-day basis. It has been my privilege to be a doctor for 22 years. And, you know, being a GP for 9 or 10 years. Before then, I worked in A&E. Good work-life balance is really important. What I mean by that is there needs to be a balance between your work or your job and other things that you do. Many people in the Afro-Caribbean community, we are often very guilty of this, where we work, we do extra hours, we during holidays, we are doing extra. We don't have a habit of taking holidays and things like that. There has to be a good work, and even if you don't take a holiday, there has to be a good work-life balance. There has to be other things in your life. Here is a tip for you. Most professional coaches, most top flight coaches, one of the things that they do with some of their footballers, their football coaches, when they have a very important game, they often encourage them to go and play another sport. They take them to go and play basketball, badminton. They take them to go and play golf, just to take their minds away from that football. So in the same way, because a lot of people tell me my job is stressful. Listen, if you work or live in Europe, you're bound to have a stressful job. I don't care if you're packing cartons for Amazon or you're a magistrate in the court of law. Because of the way we work in this part of the world. Now, I've been to many parts of the world, in places like Brazil, Cuba, even in some parts of Spain. In the afternoon, they go and have siesta. They take 2 hours off. Even the French, they go and it doesn't happen around here. I met a French lady who she basically relocated back to France after she lived in the UK. She said she didn't like the working hours, and I smiled. I understood exactly what she meant. The way we work, our work pattern can be stressful no matter your job. That's what I'm saying. Therefore, you and I need to find ways of relaxing. You have to find other things. Now, it may sound really simple, but these simple things, people don't do it. Find a hobby, find a group, find a community group, find a girls group or dance group or something. Look for like-minded people, book reading club, flower arrangement, I don't care, equestrian, horses, whatever it is, do something. As a matter of fact, one of the things that's happening now in the NHS, well, it's not new, but in the last 5 or 6 years, there's something called social prescribing, where when people are having difficulties, they are being prescribed social things. Part of social prescribing is just somebody to come and sit down and talk to you. You tell them all your problems. Part of social prescribing, we've encouraged people to go and register with their local mosque or their local churches. Just that company, that having people around you, it just takes your mind away. I remember very, very vividly, a lovely young lady, she was only in her early 30s, and she was having she had chronic mental health issues. Now, it wasn't the be all and end all, but part of the treatment that we gave, Brainwave, was I asked her what she liked doing, and she actually enjoyed flower arrangement. So I We got her to go and do some, volunteer somewhere. She was, doing some flower arrangement things. She was so good at it that they liked her. She liked them. She got a job there. Within a couple of years, she was off medication. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't take medication. I'm just saying that there's many other things that we can do that would help us if you do suffer with different things. All right. Yeah, we've been asked to tell you to please keep your questions coming in. So what are some of the things that we can do to prevent stress? So, good work-life balance, very important. I mean, there have been lifestyle coaches on here talking about, I haven't listened to the talk, but I'm sure they've mentioned this, effective time management. Listen, you have to learn to say no sometimes. Somebody said once that when you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else. And when you say no to something, you're probably saying yes to something else. It's really, really important, because if you work around the clock, there was a guy from Tanzania, East Africa, somewhere. He he collapsed on the train. He collapsed on the train. And when we looked at it, he had worked 12-hour shifts, about six or seven in a row. He was coming back from his 6th or 7th 12-hour shift and just collapsed on the train. He was only young. He was only like 29. We have to learn. You have to draw the line somewhere and say, look, I'm not doing this. The other extreme is those who were just couch potatoes. I had to learn to be a couch potato because I'm pretty much a workaholic, I think, or I used to be. But there's some who, both extremes are not good enough for us. There has to be a balance somewhere where you are doing something that's, helping your body to use your metabolism, or you're not overworking yourself, to an early grade. Number 3 is a very big one for me, because this, like I said, relationships, I have found, especially with the COVID pandemic, that opened up a big can of worms. Relationships are a huge factor, almost 90%. Now, this is just empirical evidence from my own practice. Almost 90% of people that come to me with stress and anxiety have relationship problems. 90%. It's mind-boggling, because nearly every single person, there's some relation. It's either their son, it's either a spouse or a partner, their father, their sister, their brother. This is what I'm saying, that in our waking lives, we spend 16 hours having to deal with people. So that we have to find ways of living together, because human beings are social animals. Because some people have thought to themselves that, well, the solution is I just won't talk to anybody and all of that. That in itself is a problem, because social loneliness and isolation has been shown to one of the bigger risk factors for suicide. And unfortunately now in the UK, as we speak, at least in England, the second commonest cause of death in men under the age of 45 is suicide, as we speak. And if you narrow that down, it's usually between the ages of about 39 to 45. This is in men. I was doing the research, and I was giving a talk to the Royal College of GPs, and people were amazed about this. So isolation in itself is not going to solve the problem. We have to find ways, and I've said in my slide there that we need to find ways of resolving conflict quickly. Find ways, forgive people, move on, get a therapist or get counseling, get mediation, whatever it is you have to do. It's not worth stressing over, because at the end of the day, somebody says unforgiveness is like, or being in a tension with somebody is like drinking poison and expecting somebody else to die. When you're in conflict with other people, you're so angry with them, but it's like that anger is doing a lot to harm you. It's like you're drinking poison and then you're expecting somebody else to die. The worst part is sometimes we're in conflict with people, and the people don't even know we're in conflict with them. So resolve those questions and queries quickly. Resolve them quickly. Otherwise, it will do us damage. I'm trying to answer the questions before they are asked, because I know people will ask these questions. All right. I'm going to move on quickly now. I'm going to share this slide. Healthy lifestyle, of course, is very important. Diet, exercise, sleep. Sleep is a big one. You must learn how to, if you don't get enough sleep, you'll fall ill, pure and simple. There's a biological clock in our bodies. And what happens is during the time of sleep, your body repairs itself. Your body actually tries to, a lot of things are going on where your body is doing a lot of things mentally and physically to try and restore, reset, like a computer, reboot. Sleep is crucial to our lives. Lack of sleep has been shown to cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, hypertension, etc. So that's really important. Diet and exercise goes without saying. A lot has been said about that. I won't say much. I've said this in passing, be a part of a community. Isolation and loneliness is a huge problem, especially in the elderly and nowadays in young people. You'll be amazed, teenagers are getting more and more isolated because of all these lovely devices that we all have. Isolation is a problem. And I'm not talking about an online community. Go talk to people. Thank God for COVID where we had to isolate. But, bearing any more variants, be a part of people. There's something that happens. There are hormones that are released that are when you touch somebody. There are hormones, good hormones, endorphins that are released when you touch somebody. I was watching a documentary in the US. Thank God for the US. People are giving hug therapies. This woman was being paid quite a bit of money to hug people. She'll hug you for like an hour. And I'm like, come here for free. I'll do it for free. But it just shows the power of human touch. Go belong to a group. Be a part of a group. Like I said, the NHS now, they're prescribing things for people where they're encouraging people to join social groups, be a part of a youth club, be a part of a dance club, go join your local mosque, go join your local church, whatever it is, be a part of the local group. Some research was done at a local church in London, a very big, massive church. And they found out that in large congregations like that, because of social contact, the kind of music and the positive messages that are being set out, 95% less likely to suffer with anxiety, depression, and stress. Not me, just research. All right. So be a part of a group. Don't isolate yourself. All right. And last thing, but not the least on my list, was be kind to somebody. Practice kindness. Let's be good to one another. I said this in one of the talks during the pandemic. Look for somebody and just be nice to them. You don't have to know them. They don't have to be related to you. They don't even have to be Afro-Caribbean. Let's practice kindness, because all those things, you see, I was listening to a millionaire, the entrepreneurs, a group of entrepreneurs, and they were saying that there is this good feeling that they get when they give out money or when they give out the part of their riches. Apart from the fact that it's tax effective, but they get this good feeling. Do something nice for somebody. And you'll find that, see, these are practical tips because, like I said, I've been a doctor a while, and I'm not the type of doctor that wants to just dish out medication, because I found out that that's just one small aspect of the therapy. There's lots of different things that we can do to help one another, to be a part of a bigger community that really, really encourages each other and helps each other to achieve a common goal. All right, I'll begin to round up now. We talked about causes of prolonged stress already. Let's look at some of the things that we can do. Some of the impacts, rather. What does it do to us? What is the effect that prolonged stress or stress has on our bodies? How is it oops, apologies. That's the one I want. Let's make it bigger. There we go. So this is what happens when we allow ourselves to be involved with, all these things happen. Like I said at the very beginning, stress and anxiety are like two evil twin brothers. They're very related. One leads to the other. Stress causes anxiety, anxiety causes stress. So prolonged stress has been proven to lead to anxiety disorders. It has been shown to cause high blood pressure, lack of sleep. It causes obesity, skin irritations, decreases our immunity. It causes thyroid problems, diabetes. So you can see, there's a lot. One thing I'm going to hone in on again, it's a major factor for relationship problems. I remember counseling a young lady who was always in conflict. She couldn't maintain a stable romantic relationship. quarreling with this boyfriend, next boyfriend, that boyfriend. Eventually, when we dug into her past, her parents were always fighting. So she grew up in an environment where she felt that there has to be a fight. Otherwise, this matter is not settled. And this is what I'm saying that about prolonged stress, that it can insidiously, it can surreptitiously, it can quietly affect us without us knowing. And it begins to affect us inside and begins to change us and begins to cause us to behave in ways that may not necessarily be, excuse me, ways that may not necessarily be natural to you. See, I talk too much. That's what happens. Excuse me. So we need to be careful about these things and pay attention to it. All right. I think that's my signal to begin to round up now. And so we looked at treatment options. These are all lots of things that we can do. Some of them not available on the NHS yet, but now being approved. So complementary therapies such as mindfulness, yoga, hypnotherapy, they're not widely available, or some of them are not even approved by the NHS, but there is a lot of evidence to prove that they can be very effective. What we have found to be quite effective as well is self-help groups, psychoeducational groups, guided self-help, which you can get again through referral to your local mental health team. Talking therapies such as CBT, applied relaxation, exposure response prevention, and a host of other talking therapies that you can get involved with. Of course, medication. All the research points to the fact that it's a combination of talking therapies and medication give you the highest efficacy in dealing with stress and anxiety. And I think it bears mentioning here that as far as the Afro-Caribbean Health Network is concerned, we have a thriving counseling department, mental health department that will offer you aid absolutely for free if you do need it. So it's really important that we get in touch if you need that. All right, that's me done. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and I'll be happy to take any questions as well as my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joe. That was really interesting, very practical, and yet very educative as well. Thank you. You delivered that beautifully. And just a few sort of salient points to just sort of go over from the very elaborate talk that you've given us this morning. You mentioned the importance of early recognition of stress and anxiety. You also mentioned the fact that once we recognize these things early, we can then help ourselves and we can help others. And also preventing ourselves from being in a chronic or constant state of stress or anxiety, minimize the risk of then ending up with an anxiety disorder. And I like the fact that you drew that line between the fact that an anxiety state or being stressful is completely different from having an anxiety disorder. But obviously, if we don't do anything about it, then it's kind of a slippery slope. And it's staggering, isn't it? All the statistics about the number of people who are taking their lives, who are, killing themselves. It is scary, but it is so real, because I had a colleague just a few weeks ago who went to work. She went on a shift, and then one of their mates said, "Oh, I'm going to have my break now." And this guy just went to have his break. It was meant to be half an hour, and he didn't come back after half an hour. So someone popped around to go and check on him. And he's been there for more than half an hour. It's time for him to resume his shift. He's not back. They went and they just found that he had taken his life. Wow. And that is how sad it is. And these things are real. They're real and they're happening. And I'm sure that on the call today, there must be someone here who either knows someone who's really, ended up in a very bad way because of being in these situations that we're talking about. So they're really real to us. Stress and anxiety is a real thing that happens every day, and we need to use it as a positive tool to empower ourselves and make sure that we don't go down that slippery slope, which Dr. Joe talked about. And also the things about lifestyle measures that you mentioned, the bits about having conflicts resolved, forgiving one another, belonging to groups. All these are very important. And we do have our Healthy Heart sessions on Tuesdays as well for all our listeners and viewers. Just to know that on Tuesdays, we delve further into diet, nutrition, and lifestyle to help us equip ourselves. So thank you once again, Dr. Joe, for all those practical examples. Now we do have some questions for you, so we'll zoom straight into the Q&A session. One of our audience in the room is asking about the fact, let me just go up to this question right now. Yeah, so this lady is saying, or gentleman, it doesn't state who it is specifically. Personally, meditation has really helped me to manage my anxiety. But my question is anxiety disorder genetic or not? And how can this be helped? So he or she wants to know, is an anxiety disorder genetic or not? And if not, or if so, how can this be helped? Thank you.
That's a very, very good question. It's actually one of the things that I wanted to mention. Thank you for that question. So nearly all mental health disorders have genetic links to it. So I want to be careful how I say this, knowing that I'm speaking to lay people. There are different types of genetic links. So mental health disorders tends to run in families. So if you have a parent, for example, that suffers with anxiety, there is a possibility that there's a more likelihood that the children or relatives will suffer with anxiety. It's not the same thing as having a genetic link, like a gene for mental health that says that if you have this gene, then you will suffer mental health. I don't know if that makes sense. I'll give you an example. Sickle cell is a genetic disorder. If you have the gene for sickle cell, whether you like it or not, once you have the gene, you will develop sickle cell. What's that other one that is quite crippling again? Motor neuron disease, certain types of motor neuron disease, they have a genetic link to it. Diabetes, again, is like mental health in the sense that there's no specific genetic link, but if you have it in your family, then you're more likely to get it. Hypertension is one of those where if you have it in the family, you're more likely to get it. But there's no strong genetic link. It's just that it increases the likelihood of getting it because there are different forms of genetic things for those of us who are not medically involved. So things like asthma, diabetes, hypertension and indeed anxiety and depression, they do have some sort of family related link, but there's no specific genetic link to them. So the fact that somebody in your family has hypertension, for example, doesn't mean that you will get hypertension. If you look after yourself, if you maintain a healthy lifestyle, unlike sickle cell or other genetic disorders where the gene is there, and so you don't really have a choice. It's like breast cancer gene. If you have it, you're going to get it. What are you having for breakfast? Yeah. Is that all right? I don't know if that answered that question.
Yes, that's clear. Thank you so much. And I hope that helps the caller as well. And also, we know that most of these things, the environment we find ourselves in also plays a massive impact. So I guess to add on to what Dr. Joe is saying, if you are in that environment where these things are happening, they do have an impact and you're surrounded by these things, they do really feed into how we all pan out. We're a combination of our genes and our environment. So thank you for clarifying that, Dr. Joe. Can a deficiency of vitamins and minerals cause anxiety and depression? So that is another question.
Simple answer to that is no. They do not cause anxiety and depression. They can give you symptoms of anxiety and depression, but they do not on their own cause anxiety and depression. We have to be very careful. If I have a lack of vitamin D, it doesn't mean it's going to make me become depressed. It will give me signs and symptoms that may look like depression, but it won't cause depression.
Thank you. Okay. And also, does it follow that if someone has had clinical depression, Dr. Joe, they're also likely to develop an anxiety disorder? Because we tend to see people who present with anxiety and other people presenting with depression, but equally, we commonly see people who present with both anxiety and depression. Yeah. So another caller would like to know that if you've had clinical depression, does that mean that you're also likely to develop an anxiety disorder? Thank you.
The simple answer to that is yes, you are likely to answer that question the way the caller has asked it. Unfortunately, anxiety and depression, again, are like cousins. And, they tend to, because the symptoms stem from similar things. I did a talk before on anxiety and depression. They do tend to feed into each other, but you can have pure depression and you can have pure anxiety. So it's not necessarily compulsory, but there is a more likelihood that if you have anxiety, you will get depressed, and the other way around as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And we can, I mean, most of the things that you said already will also apply to managing people who've got either both of those or even depressive symptoms. Most of those lifestyle things which he talked about.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, this is the good part of the therapy issues, that a lot of the things that we mentioned in terms of mindfulness, in terms of cognitive behavior therapy, they tend to work really well for a host of these things: anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, the phobias. The point is, though, when you go to a therapist, and if they're a good therapist, they will then sift out which aspect of mental illness is particular to you and focus on that, because the aim of the therapy will then change slightly to reflect that as well. So it's not one size fits all. It will also depend on your age, on your stage in life, etc. It's been shown, like I mentioned before, that suicide is on the rise in older people, especially between the age of 40 and 50. And it's scary, and it's actually very depressing. In my local area in Trafford and in Hume, where we have our worship center, the local councils have gotten some grant from the government. Guess what? These monies are being specially dedicated for young Black men, 16 to 25-year-olds, and it's for mental health. Why? Because they've recognized there's an increased risk. Just a few months ago, two or three people killed themselves. One was 27, the other one was about 29, young Black men. So when I give talks like this, I'm very, very passionate and animated, because unfortunately we see these things raw. We come across these things on a day-to-day basis. And it could be that's someone's brother, that's someone's cousin, that's someone's son, that's someone's father, maybe. And they've committed suicide. And the question is, why is this happening more? And in the past, our community, the Afro-Caribbean communities, we tend to hush these things. It's kind of like a taboo. Stress is seen almost like a weak. If you say you're stressed, you're like a weakling. You couldn't bear it. My forefathers used to trek 10 miles to the farm, and you're driving now, and you're talking about stress. What kind of stress? There are certain people in certain generations that you can't even talk to them about stress, because they don't know what you're talking about. Stress, what is that? So we need to begin to change the narrative ever so slowly. We need to begin to talk about it more. We need to bring it out to the surface, and we need to encourage people to recognize these things and hopefully get people to seek help.
That's very true, yes. And we need to be supportive as well, don't we? Because we know that really when people are going through these things, they're not in a good place at all.
Exactly.
And as you've talked about accessing the help available, we're not great at accessing help. But sometimes we're just scared to access help, or we feel stigmatized, or we're not sure what we're going to say, or we feel we might be misinterpreted. And that's why these talks are great, Dr. Joe, because we equip ourselves. We all learn something. We all recognize that, if I see that sister or that brother going through this thing we've talked about this morning, that could be a sign. Someone might not be feeling up to going for counseling or going to see their therapist, but might take me or you or the other person in the room as their sister, their brother, their friend, their neighbor, to say, come on, I'll go with you. I'll hold your hand. I'll be there for you. I'll wait outside the room for you. And just positively propping each other up really goes a long way, because life happens to all of us, doesn't it? And
it does.
We've got to be there for each other.
That is a brilliant point you've made, Diana. And if you don't mind, I'll just piggyback a little bit on that, because this is actually one of the major issues that we're trying to address this through CAHN, through the Black Health Improvement Program, where we're trying to educate GP surgeries and other people about the fact that there are things that are happening with regards to the Afro-Caribbean community where people struggle with access. Now, with regards to mental health, there's already an access issue nationwide anyway. Whether you're Black, Caribbean, whatever, Caucasian, there's already a problem. Mental health is underfunded, unfortunately, often misunderstood, often misrepresented. And this is one of the reasons why people like me jumped on. I didn't have any special qualification initially. It was almost comical how I entered mental health. I got into this surgery and nobody was dealing with the mental health patients. And I felt sorry for them. And that was a long time ago. And that was how eventually I got myself into it. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is about access and stigma. We need to understand that when people are going through these kind of difficulties, it's even more difficult for them to come out and say, I have a problem. So like you rightly pointed out, Diana, we need to be more compassionate, right? We need to be more empathetic about what's going on around us. We need to try and see more clearly. Unfortunately, recently I lost a friend. True life story. Lost a friend just 15th of July. This young chap was only 47 or 46, something like that. All right. Now, what happened to him? He developed high blood pressure about 5 years ago. I am his friend. We spend time together. He's come to my house, but he's a pastor and he doesn't believe in taking medication and all of that. He hid it from me. The medication that he was prescribed, he did not take it. He developed complications of kidney problem. You know how Black people are with kidneys, Diana. You know, he developed complications of chronic kidney problems. This guy, it was like a bad movie to me, because here's somebody that 1 minute we're at my house, pandemic happens, then I hear he's in hospital, he gets bad kidneys, develops a stroke, and he died last month. All started from hiding my illness. Oh, I don't want people to know, and this and that. So it's really, really important that I, especially, and I'm not being biased because I'm a man, but men tend to be more reticent, more reluctant. You're a doctor, you know that. Men don't come, to GP surgeries. They don't come. They don't want to go to hospitals and all of that. And this is my father. This is my brother. So I know about it firsthand. But it's all of us. And like you said, we all need to pull together to really, as a community, begin to encourage one another to really help each other out.
Thank you. And thanks for sharing that story, and our condolences to that family and on the loss of your friend. But that's the reality on the ground. We do need to pull together, support each other, and move forward together. Now, on a slightly different note, we would like to know from you, Dr. Joe, can stress and anxiety cause hair loss?
Yes. Simple answer to that is yes. It's very interesting, because this is why I put the differential diagnosis of low vitamin D, low iron, because low vitamin D, low iron can also cause hair loss. The menopause can also cause hair loss. So, but stress, yes, absolutely. It's one of the predisposing factors to alopecia, where you start losing hair, which is an autoimmune condition, but made worse by stress. So yes, simple answer to that is yes. Okay, but please, whoever is asking that question, if there's hair loss, always look for other causes of hair loss before you assume, because most of them are reversible. If you find the cause, like if you have low iron and you treat it, the hair starts growing again.
I wonder whether we've had a session on hair loss. Maybe it might be useful to bring that back again. But yes, as you've rightly said, yeah, there could be a number of causes. So please always speak to your GP or your doctor to find out what else might be going on. Now, Philip Bays, you'd like to know whether the Healthy Heart sessions are on Zoom or in person. So yes, we do have them on Zoom, and one of our digital assistants will post the joining details in there for you. Another caller says, I think this was probably when you were giving the example about genetic and sort of the other causes. So a caller is saying, I was under the impression that hypertension is more genetic based. Perhaps stress is a throwback from our slavery days, I think. So that's someone's comment or contribution. But the question following on from that is, how can we help our children avoid anxiety or depression, especially if there is a family history of this? So this is a really important question. How can we help our children, especially if there are things running in the family that is already sort of multiplying the risk factors?
Now, this is a very, very good question. I like it. I like it because it's right up my street with what I do. One of the things I do is I run a youth mentoring group. I started doing it for single moms about 5-6 years ago, and then it's just expanded. Now we have about 80 children in that group. One of the things we can do is to build confidence in our children and to develop in them a sense of identity. So unfortunately, anxious parents very often produce anxious children. That is fact. If you are always anxious, a lot of times when parents come to me and say their children are anxious, then I normally screen the parents. And then you'll find that when you treat the parents, the child starts getting better too. So it's very interesting because, especially in the world where we live in now, in this part of the world where people don't want to accept or admit to the fact that there's something wrong with them. It's always somebody else's fault. You know, and somebody said, oh, my child has skin conditions. They must have gotten it from their father. You know, it's that kind of society that we live in. But to answer your question, it's not a simple one-liner that I can give you. To prevent that, there has to be a number of measures. Number one, you've done well, whoever is answering your question, we do well to recognize the fact that these things are running in our families. It's like in my family, for example, I tell anybody who cares to know, there's diabetes in my family, but I will never get diabetes. Why? Because I know that there's diabetes in my family. So I take every step to make sure that there's no diabetes anywhere around me. So this is the point I'm making, that if once you recognize it, now you can start making active steps, taking active steps to do that. Part of it is building confidence in your children, creating in them a sense of identity. Part of this is also making sure that the environment, we talked about healthy relationships. I cannot overemphasize this. I have seen way too many people, Caucasian, Black, ethnic minority, everybody, when the relationships are not healthy around the children, then you'll find out that these children are going to be more prone, even if it was not there in the family before. Marriage counseling 101. Do not fight in front of your children. Do not argue unnecessarily. Do not in front of your children. Just don't do it, because you are modeling the wrong thing. Now, I'm not saying you should pretend. I'm just saying that whatever issues you adults have, don't transpose it onto the children. It's not their fault. All right? It's not their fault that you have a bad, evil boss at work. Don't take it out on them. It's not their fault that there's global warming and Man United are not winning any matches. It's not their fault. So whatever issues you have, don't bring it to the children. It's more difficult than it sounds, but parents have a higher responsibility, and it's a whole new seminar on its own, that particular question.
Thank you so much, and really thank you to that person who's asked that question. A very important question, and we really should be doing more for our young people, for our youth. And I like your idea of actually that youth mentoring group. I've written it down, and I'll see what we can do here as well. I think we all need to do something, and there's something my husband says a lot. He says that the word of God is for the equipping of the saints, for the work of the ministry. And sorry, I'm being a bit biased here, but whatever we learn when we come to these sessions and, you know, we empower ourselves and we educate ourselves, it's not just for us. It's for us to go out there and to share. So it doesn't matter what you learn. If you're not affected directly, please, let's help someone else. Let's equip someone else. Let's pass this message on and help someone. It might not be you directly, it might be a neighbor, it might be a friend. Chukwuemeka, I can see your hand is up. We do have quite a few questions, but I'll let you unmute, please. And then if you can briefly your question or contribution in, and then we'll carry on with the questions that we've got. Thank you. Are we able to unmute Amadi Chukwuemeka, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can, yes, carry on, please.
Okay, it's just a simple question to ask regarding what he said not quite long ago. Dr. Joe, you mentioned that diabetes runs in your family, and that because you are aware, you have the knowledge that diabetes runs in your family, that you can have diabetes. I would like to know what are the steps you are taking to prevent, diabetes, prevent you from yourself from getting diabetes. Yes. That's the simple question I want to ask, please, because I also have a similar situation in my family. In fact, I've been monitoring my blood sugar levels for some time now. I just want to know, what are these other steps that you're taking to ensure you don't develop that? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Over to you, Dr. Joe.
Diana, are we allowed to charge for questions?
I think this is a bit of a consultation, isn't it?
Because I feel that
we'll
question,
very briefly touch on
that question deserves an invoice.
I think so. Or maybe you can use the kindness card, and then we can
please, yeah.
All right. We'll use the kindness card. We'll use the kindness card.
All right.
So
thanks for that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Great question. So the first thing you've said is what we're already doing. You're already doing it. Monitoring, you're checking, you're getting yourself checked out. Really important. Most things in medicine is not that hard. Most things in medicine are easily curable if they're caught early. The problem arises when we do not detect these things early and they're allowed to fester. So right from the age of about 30, I started having yearly tests for diabetes. Every other year, I get myself tested. I submit myself to the GP. Some of them at the initial stages, they didn't even know I was the GP myself. I would just go there, get my bloods done, and go away. I go there once a year in my GP surgery. They don't see me again for another year. Now, so that's the first thing you want to do. The other thing is, of course, your lifestyle. You need to make sure that all the things that we mentioned here, good sleep, a healthy diet. If you know that your family is prone to something, it's like the lady who has asthma and is a smoker. And I said to her, this is a recipe for disaster. You're just asking for trouble. You have asthma and then you're smoking 20 cigarettes a day. By the time you're 45, your lungs may no longer function. So those things that you know. So diet is really important. The types of food that you eat. Exercise is my big one that I started, because most of the food that we eat, I don't know about you, but I'm African. Most of the food that we eat are oily and all of that. So I cut out red meat. Red meat is the richest source of cholesterol known to man, apart from egg yolk. So I cut them down as much as possible, and go for white meats. Now, it doesn't mean I don't eat it at all. I just reduce it. So because by reducing your cholesterol intake, by reducing your fat intake, you reduce the risk of diabetes. There are 5 or 6 things that contribute generally to diabetes. Your lifestyle, alcohol intake, smoking, your weight, stress, genetics. So these are all the things that build into the predisposing factors, as it were, to diabetes. If you are able to, you can't do anything about your genetics. You're born in that family, right? But you can do something about stress. Look at me. I'm looking like 20 years all the time because I don't allow anything to stress me. Even if Diana doesn't say it, I'll say it. I look like I'm 20 years old all the time. I know she's thinking it, but then you have to make sure that things, basically, like I said before, this is not a one-line answer, but there are a number of things that you can do. If you know what the risk factors are for diabetes, you can simply just avoid all those things. I hope that helps, Chukwemeka.
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And can we please unmute him now? Thank you for that, Dr. Joe. And Chukwemeka, we have had sessions on diabetes. I know we had a whole month on diabetes. Please do feel free to email CAHN, health@cahn.org.uk, and anyone on the call who wants any information on the previous talks we've had, and you can get the sessions or the slides. Also, we have these Healthy Heart sessions on Tuesdays that talk about diet and lifestyle. Someone did ask about when the next one would be. It's coming Tuesday, and I can see that I think details have been posted in. There's also a comment to say that this is such a fantastic talk, Dr. Joe, and other comments to say thank you and well done. This is such a fantastic talk. It's such a shame we haven't got that many views. I mean, we know that people, are busy on holidays, etc., but we know that people also viewing on YouTube and, other places. But this is also the more reason why we need to spread the word about these CATHIP Health Hour sessions. We've got clinicians who are volunteering their time. We've got audiences who are willing and ready to engage. So please, let's spread the word, share the flyers, spread the word so that we can all benefit and more people can come on these calls. Evangelist, I can see your hand up. I'll be coming to you just in a minute, Evangelist Sylvia, but I'll just take 2 questions from the chat box and I'll come to you. So Evangelist, I think you've mentioned about some one-to-one counseling, but I'll let you unmute in a minute. So please hold fire for me, don't go away. Nicole, thanks for posting the details about the CAHN counselling sessions in there. So Evangelist, the details are there. Recordings can be made available. Yes, please email health@cahn.org.uk and we can send you details. The feedback forms are being sent out, so please complete those. Let us know whether these sessions are useful or not, the topics you want us to discuss, the areas you want us to highlight more so that we can make these relevant to you. Thank you for all those comments and questions coming in. Now, there is a question which says, I care for my mother who has a diagnosis of mixed dementia. Very stressful, into brackets, and she's always been a warrior, anxious for many years. Having recognized this, I've made sure I don't have those traits and to be better. So I would say I'm not a product of anxieties and worries. So that's another person alluding to what Dr. Joe has said, that there's some things we cannot control, which is our genes, but whatever you can control, if you recognize it early and you deal with it early, then you can minimize your risk. Evangelist Sylvia, would you like to ask your question, please? And then we'll carry on with the rest of the questions. Thank you.
Yeah, God bless you, ma. I really appreciate. Thank you very much. This is my first time joining the Zoom. My mommy in the Lord just introduced me to it because I spoke with her yesterday.
You're welcome.
You know, so I really thank God for Dr. Joe. Thank you very much. I appreciate. You know, you said when someone is passing through something, it's good you have somebody to speak to. You know,
Absolutely.
so that you people will talk it together. What you are thinking might not be what it is. You know, so we need to talk to each other. That is what I need as well. You know, so I came from Spain. I'm here in UK with my family, with my children. My husband is staying in Spain. So I faced a call, a family planning, not to be pregnant. But now my age is, you know, going to menopause. So I'll start making research. Sometimes it's just about 2 weeks now. I can't sleep. I feel headache. In fact, things irritate me sometimes, you know, it just somehow how I feel. Sometimes I don't understand myself. You understand? So I was looking for who to talk to. So here, my GP, you know, I don't really understand them here. You don't have family GP as in, it's a one person. When I make an appointment, it's one person. When I make another appointment, it's another person. Nobody's getting the understanding. So it gets me confused. Who will I talk to? You know, so that is why I'm asking, is it, how would I settle that area of menopause? And I know you people have talked it since, but I didn't enter on time. You understand? So I would like to be entering Zoom and talking to someone to see how I can really balance myself. The thing is getting me crazy. You understand?
Bless you. Thank you so much for opening up and asking for help. And that's the biggest thing that we talk about. God bless you, Evangelist, because we need people to speak up. And
Yeah.
I think what would be great for you would be one-to-one session. Dr. Joe would be more than happy to speak to you in detail about the things that we can help with. But definitely your GP is your go-to person. They're the ones who can, with your medical history, give you that advice. But we do have these sessions, don't we, Dr. Joe? How would you want to get the details to address this?
Yeah, the thing is, like I said earlier on, we have a very fantastic counseling unit here in CAHN. I'm not just saying that. I am really, really proud of them. These guys are on the ball. So the first port of call really is to get in touch with the helpline and speak to someone. They will do a triage, and most of the time, they are able to deal with a lot of things. Now, if for any reason they do feel that you need further medical input, then they will let us know. There are a number of doctors, not just me, there are a number of doctors who have given up their time, who will speak to you, people like yourself, Sylvia, and they can help you. So please do get in touch with the helpline. I think the number is on there, as well as the email address for you to get in touch with them. In the first instance, they'll speak to you, they'll sort out a few things for you, and if need be, they'll put you in touch with either myself or one of my colleagues. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Just for the benefit of those who can't see the number in the chat box, so the counselling helpline is 07710 022 382. Evangelist, have you got it down?
I don't. It just showed from the screen, but I wanted to screenshot it, but it didn't allow me. I think
Okay, so if you go back onto the chat, you can screenshot it or you can write it down. We don't
okay.
want to lose you, so please
Yes.
do send us our details and we will come back
Okay.
to you.
I got it now. I screenshot it.
Yes, and for anyone else who would like to know, especially those who are not directly in the Zoom room at the moment, that is the number. And please let us support each other. Let us reach out. These guys
Yes.
are doing a great job and they will support you, as Dr. Joe said. God bless you, and please, we can unmute Evangelist now. Now, Dr. Joe, just very briefly on the lady who gave a submission about her mum having dementia. I know it was just a comment, not a question, but can having stress or being under a lot of stress or ending up with a sort of anxiety disorder, can that increase our risk of suffering from dementia? Very briefly, I know you could give a whole talk on that, but
Yeah,
just briefly.
The simple answer is yes. The complex answer is that there has to be a lot of other things in place. So there are two types of dementia, as you probably have heard from previous talks. There's vascular dementia, there's Alzheimer's dementia. Vascular dementia is the one that you have a lot of risk factors that contribute to it. So vascular dementia implies where there's parts and bases of the brain are either disrupted, blood vessels, etc. So the risk factors for that include hypertension, high cholesterol, stress, and all of that. So you can get vascular dementia from that, technically speaking. But dementia is such a complex and different illness that there's a lot more to it. But the simple answer is yes, prolonged stress can actually lead to that, but other factors need to come into play. Directly, if you want to simplify it, you might say no, but if you want to look at it from a broader perspective, then the answer is yes.
Thank you. And so it's imperative that we do everything we can to manage our stressful situations and minimize ending up with anxiety disorders or any mental health illness or any chronic state of, stress and anxiety anyway. And I like what Dr. Joe said, early recognition is very important. If you go home with nothing today, go home with the fact that early recognition is very important. There are things that are out of our control and there are things that are within our control. There is actually a lot that is within our control. And focusing on those things that we can control, doing the best we can, being there for each other, being positive would really be helpful. We do have all these recordings of all the programs and the sessions we've had on YouTube. And also if we've got a wealth, a library full of all these useful resources and talks that we've had in the past. So please, you can either go on YouTube and type in CAHN Health Hour or CATHIP Health Hour, it comes up. You can email health@cahn.org.uk. You can send us an email. You can reach out to the counselling team. We have these sessions every Saturday. So whether you know what topic is on or not, whether you got the advert or not, the flyer or not, you can be guaranteed that every Saturday we are here from 11 o'clock and you please can join in. Dr. Joe, you've been absolutely wonderful. I'm looking at the time. This could go on forever. I'm really enjoying it. And then I suddenly realized, time is, really far spent. And we just want to thank you so much. But I want 3 messages from you, Dr. Joe, just 3 take-home things that if you were to tell us, I've probably said one of them, but you can re-echo it, but 3 messages that you want us to go away from here with today.
Yeah, thanks, Diana. It's always a pleasure for me to be here. I'm always I feel privileged that we're able to do this and sow into the community and give back. So yeah, 3 messages. Number 1, you said it, early recognition is really important. We need to be recognizing these things. Secondly, please make every effort to build relationships around you. Don't allow conflict and stress to be prolonged. Number 3, do not isolate yourself. Be a part of a community, be a part of a group, be a part of something. Join into something. Look for a cause that is bigger than you and get involved with it and be a part of that. Be kind. I'll do one more. Let's be kind to one another. I don't want to sound like Oprah, but to be honest with you, the number of things that you can prevent and you can do just by being kind and nice to the next human being is unbelievable. So I'll leave us with that, if that's okay.
That is perfect. And on that very positive note and very sort of uplifting note, I would want to say a massive thank you to you, Dr. Joe Omofuma, for your time and for your input, and to every single person who's taken time out to come out today to make this session a success. Without you, these sessions are pointless, they're meaningless. So we are all involved. When we come on the call and we see people dialing in numbers, we are also empowered, we are also encouraged to keep coming in week out to volunteer our time. So please, we're here for you, so do be here for us as well. Let's spread the word and let's keep coming. We're going to move on to the closing, and I hand over to my colleague, and I say thanks to all the team for your support behind the scenes, and to CAHN and all our CATHIP partners for making this work week in, week out. It has been my pleasure to host you. I'm Dr. Diana Asante, and thank you once again, Dr. Joe. I hand over to my colleague to do the closing session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Annabelle.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diana. That was a wonderful, wonderful section. Thank you for a great job in hosting this section today. And to Dr. Joseph, thank you so, so much. I personally learned a lot from today's section. And I'm also sure a lot of people are going home with something. At least if you're not going home with anything, you should go home with, show love or love someone. So I'm going to give you, and to our wonderful audience, I don't want to forget you. Thank you. This is not possible without you. Thank you for being part of this session. And we also look forward to see you more often on Saturdays. And I'm going to give you an update on our events, upcoming events. We have the Manchester Carnival, which is happening live today at Alexandra Park. And it will be nice if you can join us there at Alexandra Park. It's going to be a fun-filled day. And we also want you to remember to, pop into the CAHN health tent as you enjoy the carnival. And we also have another CATHIP Health Hour section next week, and that will be on the 28th of August. Same time, 11 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. And we'll be discussing diabetic eye disease. And we have Dr. Evelyn to speak to us on that day. So if you need to register, you have to send an email to events@cahn.org.uk. And next, please. Okay, we also have our Tuesday sessions, the Healthy Heart sections that we have on Tuesdays. And we have one coming up on the 16th of August, 2022. And that is from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And it will be on parental portion size practices in the home environment. And next, please. We also have a Black History Month coming up, and we're celebrating that on the 28th of September, 2022, and it will be at the Manchester Cathedral. So it's another exciting event. And we have on the 22nd of October, 2022, our annual gala anniversary. And we have limited spaces, and it will be great if you can, buy your ticket early enough so that you'll be part of it. Next, please. Okay, we also have some wonderful support services that we provide at CAHN. Just like we've discussed about stress and anxiety, we have the family and advocacy support services, we have the counseling services, and if you need to reach us, you can send an email to help@cahn.org.uk, or you can send a text or give us a call on 077-100-22382. Thank you. Okay, we'll not forget to say thank you to our partners. We have we have the Credon BML, we have the Black Health Initiative, BHI, and we have the Credon BME Forum. We also have the RAFA, the Enfield Caribbean Association. We have the Royal Assembly Redeemed Christian Church of God. Please reach out to our partners. Thank you. Thank you. It would be nice to also see every one of us next week, Saturday, not just you, because I know your friends and families will also want to benefit from this sessions. Thank you so much. And see you next week, Saturday. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Welcome to our Caribbean and African Targeted Health Improvement Program, CATHIP Health Hour. The Caribbean and African Health Network, CAHN, along with its national partners, are incredibly pleased to continue to bring to you targeted health and well-being education delivered by Caribbean and African doctors. These health hours are all about empowering, educating, and giving space to Black people so our communities can look after themselves better. Every Saturday, our Black GPs or consultants present on those health and well-being topics that affect you, your family members, and friends. Some weeks will vary and will include other panel members, such as pharmacists, specialist nurses, and faith leaders. Our health hours cover a range of topics and include mental health, heart health, women's health, reproductive and sexual health issues, men's health, respiratory problems, cancer, sickle cell, and many more. We have not forgotten to include within our health hours the many societal, cultural, religious, and racial challenges that can go hand in hand with health problems and influence how we should respond to meet health and well-being needs. The sessions are designed for you, and we want you to use the time to listen, learn, share your experiences, and ask questions to our Black doctors. During every session, we will gather your feedback so we can continue to respond to the needs of our Black community. To request any particular topic, please email health@cahn.org.uk. We encourage you to invite others to our health hour sessions. Spread the word in our community. CATHIP is funded by the National Lottery Community Fund.